Hello YouTube, hey, this is MLCT here, back with another video for you guys, and today I'm giving you my first impressions of the Canon R6 right here in my hands. I've had this baby for about close to 2 months right now. This video is not going to be so technical because there's too many videos out there already, and you can actually basically get a lot of information on the internet right now about the specs and full details, but more of impressions. What I liked about this camera, what I disliked about the camera, my user experience for this short period of time. And I feel that I want to do a full review would require me to use this camera on a longer term basis. So, but without further ado, let's start this video. Alright, not to get too too much details and to bore you with all this, what are the main features of this camera that might attract you? Because if you're watching this video, most likely you're intending to buy this camera but you're still on the fence about it, or you could be like me, where even if you got the camera already, you still like to watch other people's reviews and experience. So what are the main features that actually caught me? First of all, would you believe it or not, now that Canon makes this camera, it comes with a flip out screen. Because actually I came from the 5D Mark IV, and for me to go to the Eos R was actually not much of an upgrade. But when these guys came out, actually I was considering this or the Canon R5, but in the end I settled for this one, and I couldn't be any happier, because this flip out screen helps me with vlogging, video talking sessions like this, where I'm doing YouTube videos like this and I can see myself in the frame with the flip out screen, whether I'm in, my head's not cut up like that, or or I'm out of focus. It helps a lot. And in terms of photography, this also helps a lot, because when you're taking low angle shots and all that, you can view like this, it's easy. These are all the wonderful things that you can do with a flip out screen, and that's one main feature that actually I like about it. So the R6 is actually a 20 megapixel sensor with a DGX10 processor. So basically this thing is the same as the 1DX Mark III, which is actually Canon's original flagship camera, which costs 6,500 USD, whereas this guy costs about 2,500. So you're actually getting a way cheaper camera, but you're getting essentially the same thing. So that's another main feature which will attract you to this camera. And even though it's just 20 megapixels compared to the big brother of, which is the R5, which has 45 megapixels, the image quality on this thing is still very, very good. This can shoot up to 12 frames mechanical shutter and 20 frames per second on an electronic shutter. I mean, this is good enough for sports photography and all that, paired with the right lens, of course. That's very important. So that's another main thing that we should have to consider when you're getting one. I think if you're considering a Canon R6, is that if one, you already have EF lenses like me, or you are going to get into the Canon family, so you're going to consider all the RF mounts. I'll tell you this, Canon never lets you down in terms of lenses. The only downside, if you ask me about the Canon lenses, they're damn expensive. They're really expensive, but are they good? They're very good. For my R6, my experience is that I've been using it with this Canon adapter, the EF to RF mount. As you can see here, but it also comes with the control ring, so that it's technically you can use it like a RF mount. Of course, certain features are lost, but it's good enough. So this is something that I feel is another main feature that I think you can consider when you want to buy this camera, because I feel that now when I look at my images, my EF lenses are actually performing even better with this camera. So that's another great main feature that you guys should understand, that is a main selling point of this camera. Really, because their lenses, Canon makes one of the best lenses. So something that you guys want to consider when getting this camera. So okay guys, so this first impressions video, what I like about the camera. First of all, the video capabilities of this camera. So this camera can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second and 1080 120 frames. And I must say, when I first got this camera with my EF lenses, or even when I got the Samyang RF 14mm lens, 2.8 aperture, wow, the lens is really good. It's really very good paired with this camera, and I can say that the R6 video capabilities is fantastic. Of course, compared to the R5, which has 4K 120, I mean, it's an added bonus. but honestly, in terms of video, I don't need that. I mean, I can slow down the video in post to get the same image and all that. But the thing is, because of the lower megapixel count compared to the R5, more light can be shined on your pixels, because now the pixels are actually bigger because of the lower megapixel count. So more light could be reflected on it, so it's brighter, it's clearer, it's nicer. So in terms of video, this is fantastic. Of course, you can't compare it to the A7S III, you know, but it's really there because it's actually a 5K image that's actually being downsampled to 4K. So your 4Ks and your 1080s, they look really clear and sharp. It's really very nice, and that's what I love about this camera. So also for the 4K 60, as I mentioned earlier, what I really love is that you're getting a full 4K 60 instead of the typical 4K image, not the full K 460, 4K image. Because in most cameras, even though, let's say APS-Cs, or even this, like right now I'm recording with the Sony ZV-1, this image is actually cropped in at 4K, whereas for the R6 you get a full image. It is cropped technically, but it's a very small crop compared to the typical 1.7, 1.4 times. The R6 crop is 1.07, so you can't hardly tell if there's a crop or not, and I tell you that is a big difference when it comes to image quality. Something I just want to mention with the R6. And then another thing that actually aids to the quality of this camera is actually, of course, is the 1DX Mark III sensor, as I've mentioned earlier, and also the DigiX processor. When you're buying this camera, you're getting the same thing as that flagship camera and the R5, minus all those other things, like, you know, like I said, the megapixel and all this. So because of this sensor, it actually broadens the use of this camera, not just as a video camera, but also as a photography camera. So it's actually very nice. So my usage in terms of sports photography, catching your pets, catching your kids, you know, street photography, everything, this works the perfect bill, and I really like it, especially paired with all the RF lenses, or even the EF lens with the adapters. Your EF lenses suddenly feel like they have new life, really. Of course, with the added weight, but honestly, coming from a 5D Mark IV, that is something that didn't really affect me. So coming from the 5D Mark IV, what I really liked about the R6 is the dual pixel CMOS autofocus version 2. So it gives you a high detail offering up to 100% coverage approximated, and with 1053 autofocus points. So really, you know, when compared to my 5D Mark IV, the way this thing catches the focus on the face, the eyes, everything, is night and day. This one there's no fight, even though so-called the higher megapixel count on the 5D Mark IV, and the 5D Mark IV has always been known as a professional grade camera for photographers, wedding shooters and all that. Yes, I agree, that is a fantastic camera, but compared to this technology with the new sensor, and of course with that DigiX processor, wow, it's something that immediately when I got that, I always have that fear that did I spend my money in the wrong manner, and thinking that this was a downgrade. But when I experienced that autofocus, that dual pixel autofocus, immediately I felt like my money was well spent, and that's something that I really like. And another feature that I really like about this R6 is actually the dual card slot. Now, coming from a 5D Mark IV, I also had a dual card slot, but both cards were different, meaning one was a typical UHS card, and the other one was a CF Express card. Now, anybody who is into cameras, you will understand that CF Express cards are really very expensive, and they not convenient to use. And coming from the 5D Mark IV, the moving JPEG file format was a horrible thing to edit, and I didn't really like that. So if I have gotten with the R5, like my brother, he had to buy one UHS2 card and one CF Express Type B card. When I saw the price for the 512 gigabytes CF Express Type B card, my jaw dropped. It's really too expensive. It's about $1,200 Sing. So it's about what, $600-700 US for an SD card. Are you serious? Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. But there are other things that I didn't really like. So the first thing is actually the elephant in the room for this camera throughout the whole of its lifespan so far is the overheating issue. I will say it up front now, for me, it has not overheated, not even once. But what I don't like is that especially when I'm recording in 4K 60, the recording limit just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. I mean, the recording limit is already 29 minutes and 59 seconds, which is typical of cameras, yes. But in this day of age, please, I hope there's a firmware to change this. And more importantly, when you're recording 4K 60 and you leave your camera on, as time goes on, that 29 minutes will reduce to 25 to 20 to 20 to 15 and all that. So it gets irritating. But you don't have this issue on 1080. But if you're getting this camera, most likely you're going to shoot as a 4K 60, 4K 23. So some things to take note when you're using this camera about the overheating, in the sense of that sense. But in terms of photography, I had no overheating issues. I could use this camera to shoot all day until my battery was flat. Not a single problem of overheating. So another thing that I didn't like about this camera is actually the knob. Actually, I'm okay with using it, but what I didn't like it is when I started using this part of the camera for videos. So all this custom 1, custom 2, custom 3, as you can see on the knob here, that is your photography settings, and I still feel that they haven't come up with the patch to to enable you store custom settings for video settings. So I'm right to say that when you're using photography and you set up all that, it's really nice, all that. With a turn of a knob, you got it. But when you switch it to video mode, you can't. So basically, you lose all your settings. You can do manual exposure and all that and set everything, but when you miss that moment, you miss that moment. So whereas compared to the R5, it's easier to switch between all the settings that you set. There's aperture, priority for video mode, etc. This one doesn't have that. No shutter priority, no nothing. It's all manual. So I'm not saying that you can't set it, but when you want to switch in between modes and all that, it's really shitty. So something that I wish that Canon can fix with a firmware update, because if not, it's holding it back a bit too much. And the most painful thing that I feel that is with using this Canon R6 is actually the file formats. So the beautiful thing about this camera is that he has C-Log, as what I stated. But the thing is that C-Log format that you can use, you can shoot 4K up to 60 frames per second and a 4:2 to 10-bit HDR at H.265 format. So this H.265 format file is really very, very massive of a beast. Why would I say this? If you're using older computers, you can't even recognize it on your editing software, or your editing software, if it can recognize it, it's going to slow down your computer. Your computer is going to sound like a jet engine, unless you're using those new MacBooks with those M1 chips that everybody's been raving about. So final conclusions for the Canon R6 after 1.5 months of using this camera. I would definitely recommend this camera as of this moment in terms of first impressions. Definitely get it. But there are issues with these cameras as well. It's not a perfect camera. In fact, there is no perfect camera as of this day of age at 2021. Understand what are your needs and consider what is it really falls under what you want. So to help you further make this decision, just to help you, okay, for reasons why I got this camera is because one is, if I needed a hybrid camera that can help me do stills because I'm doing photography, and also to shoot videos like say YouTube, B-rolls and everything. You could also want this camera as like, let's say, a B-roll camera, a B camera or a C camera, depending on how many cameras you have in your setup. Or it can shoot up to your standard long formats, but you're gonna have to use workarounds such as like Atomos Ninja 5 and all this. Yeah, those are the considerations that if you want to buy this camera. What I don't like about this camera is also, it can be a bit on the pricier end, in the sense that you can get cheaper alternatives as well, and they can almost do the same. But of course, those cameras have their drawbacks, have their pros as well. So weigh and balance compared to the others. So other than the Canon R6, if you're looking at this range, consider the A7 III, which is a very popular camera. but hold off first because the A7 IV is coming out. The Nikon Z6 version 2, I think that's really very good camera. But also they have their issues. Yeah. And if you're a person who is coming from another brand, let's say Sony to Canon or Canon to Sony or Nikon to Canon, consider how much glass have you invested in your current setup. Do you still want to stick to the same manufacturer? Because that was a very big decision for me as well. So yeah, I decided to stick with Canon because I came from a 5D Mark IV. My brother is also using a Canon R5, so we have a collection of lenses. So we didn't really need to invest too much into glass as of the moment. I mean, the RF glasses are fantastic, but I think my EF lenses are still quite good, especially with the adapter. So something to take note. Anyway guys, thank you so much. That's just my impressions and my verdict on about whether you should buy or not this camera. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me go a long way with this channel because I love to do reviews. I love to do impressions, tutorials and everything, vlogging. And with every like, with every subscription, it helps me grow this channel. Thank you so much and have a nice day.